I'm not one to jump to supernatural explanations for unexplained events, but I don't know where else to turn for answers. It began with small things being moved around my home. At first, it was subtle, keys appearing on a different table or clothes on my bed instead of the chair. Then it escalated. I found items in the most random places. Keys in the fridge, ice cream in the oven. But it didn't stop there. The day I discovered forks arranged in a manner that is very unexplainable on my living room floor was when I realized something was very wrong. I confronted my roommate, even though he wasn't home when these events occurred. He denied everything and threatened to move out if I kept accusing him. With no evidence to the contrary, I had to let it go. Desperate for answers, I traced the timeline of these strange events back to when I began auto-writing. Auto-writing is a technique where you enter a meditative state and write without thinking, letting your subconscious flow onto the paper. I had tried it to overcome a severe case of writer's block. While it worked remarkably well, it also brought about unsettling consequences. The most disturbing aspect was reading back what I had written, words in a style entirely unlike my own. Letters curved as if I were left-handed, the vocabulary and grammar alien. On several occasions, I blacked out and had no memory of writing at all. Yet, the ideas were excellent, and I pressed on, undeterred. The strange events in my house coincided with these blackouts. Cabinets left open, empty bottles I hadn't drunk from. After some research, I concluded that I had somehow invited something in through auto-writing. I wanted to stop, but the method was too effective for my writing. It all started innocently enough. I'd sit at my desk, blank page before me, and enter a meditative state. My hand would move almost on its own, scribbling words that seemed to come from somewhere deep within my subconscious. At first, it was liberating. The writer's block that had plagued me for months melted away, replaced by a torrent of creativity. But then strange things started to happen. I'd find objects moved from where I'd left them. My keys would be in the bathroom, my shoes under the kitchen table. It was disconcerting, but I chalked it up to absent-mindedness. Everyone misplaces things from time to time, right? As the days went on, the occurrences grew more frequent and bizarre. I found my wallet in the freezer, my phone in the garage. One morning, I woke to find all the chairs in the living room arranged in a circle. I laughed it off, thinking maybe my roommate was playing pranks on me. But when I asked him, he swore he had nothing to do with it and looked genuinely confused and a bit scared. Then came the forks again. One night, I came home late after a particularly grueling day at work. Exhausted, I kicked off my shoes and headed to the kitchen for a quick dinner. When I turned on the light, my heart nearly stopped. There, on the kitchen floor, were all the forks from the drawer, arranged in a perfect circle. It was too deliberate, too precise to be random. A chill ran down my spine as I stared at the eerie pattern. I confronted my roommate one more time, convinced he was behind it. But he denied it vehemently, his frustration turning to anger. He threatened to move out if I didn't stop accusing him. With no evidence to prove otherwise, I was forced to drop it. As the disturbances continued, I became more desperate for answers. I started keeping a journal, meticulously recording every odd event. every misplaced item. I installed cameras around the house, hoping to catch whatever was responsible, but the footage showed nothing. No intruders, no signs of my roommate tampering with anything. It was as if the objects moved on their own. It was then that I began to suspect the auto-writing. I had read about people channeling spirits or entities through this method, but I had dismissed it as nonsense. Now I wasn't so sure. I went back through my notebooks, examining the entries. The handwriting varied, sometimes dramatically. Some entries were neat and precise, others wild and erratic. And the content, some of it didn't even seem like it came from me. Dark, violent imagery, thoughts I would never entertain. I decided to do some research. I read about possession, hauntings, and the idea of opening a door to another realm through auto-writing. It all seemed far-fetched, but I couldn't ignore the growing evidence. The timeline of the disturbances matched perfectly with when I started the auto-writing. The more I wrote, the worse things became. I wanted to stop, but I was addicted to the creativity it unlocked. My writing was better than it had ever been. I was getting praise from peers, interest from publishers. It felt like I had struck gold, but at what cost? The unease grew into a palpable fear, but I pushed it aside. I needed to write. I needed the ideas, the flow, the inspiration. So, like an idiot, I continued. Then things got worse. My blackouts lengthened, and entire days passed without my awareness. Friends said I acted like a different person during these times. My mannerisms, speech, even my quirks changed. Some recorded videos of me, and watching myself in them was horrifying. I was there, but it wasn't me. A psychologist ruled out schizophrenia and multiple personality disorder. Brain scans showed nothing unusual. With no other options, I visited a medium. She sensed another presence and suggested possession, but mentioned the word brother repeatedly. Skeptical yet curious, I asked my mother if I had any unknown siblings. To my shock, she admitted I had an older brother, Brendan. "Before you were born, you had a brother," she said, eyes filled with tears. "Brendan was born before me and was a nightmare from the start. As a baby, he cried incessantly, and as he grew, he became violent and hateful. By 9, he tried to kill my mother and was institutionalized. Diagnosed with violent compulsions, he was a psychopath with no apparent cause. 8 years ago, he was killed by an orderly in self-defense. The most chilling part, before dying, he used his blood to write a vow of revenge on the wall. Armed with this knowledge, I contacted the medium again, and we held a seance. During it, I lost control of my body. I watched in terror as I, or rather Brendan controlling me, strangled the medium. Dumping her body in a river, Brendan's thoughts mingled with mine. He had waited for the chance to be invited in, and auto-writing provided that gateway. He took me home to wait for my roommate, planning torture and murder. I couldn't allow this. In a desperate struggle, I willed myself to call 911. As Brendan fought for control, I grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed myself, hoping to either die or get incarcerated, thus stopping him. I woke in a hospital, relieved. Brendan's voice was gone. Despite my confession, no one believed me. I was sent to prison, where I hoped my family was safe. Months passed without incident, and I began to believe Brendan was gone for good. But then, writing these memoirs, I discovered a journal and a finely sharpened shiv under my bed, items I hadn't made. With trembling hands, I read the first entry. Dear brother, I hope you never find this, but if you do, tell Mom I said hey for me, and hope to see her soon. Thank you for tuning in. Please leave a like and subscribe. I will see you again next week.